is the story of a miner from a small town known as Manassas, Colorado. In time, he would become a legend. In the age of the Roaring Twenties, one sports hero lived both as a gallant warrior and a worshipped celebrity. He was the perfect folk hero with the power of the press. He also possessed a furious right-left combination. Between the years 1919 and 1923, he reigned as the heavyweight champion of the world, with the status of a king ruling his country. Adoring fight fans flocked to stadiums as never before in these glamour years of boxing. Thousands upon thousands gathered at mammoth stadiums to catch a glimpse of one of America's favorite sons. Many regard him as the first superstar of the ring, and no fighter ever commanded the public limelight like the man they used to call the Manassas Mauler. This is the story of one of boxing's best, Jack Dempsey.
It was in 1916 that Jack Dempsey and his then manager Jack Price came here to Grand Central with a total of $30 in their pockets between them. The idea was to establish a reputation as a tough boxer for Jack Dempsey, but nobody would really listen, with two exceptions: Jim Price of the New York Press and the legendary Damon Runyon. Barney Nagler has been around the sport of boxing and been writing about the sport of boxing for more than 40 years. And Barney, what was it like to establish a reputation for a guy who was sort of a carnival character like Jack Dempsey?
Well, then boxing was quite different from what it is now in New York State and elsewhere. Those were the days of what was known as the Frawley Law in New York State. It was a law under which boxing was permitted between members of the same club. No decisions were rendered, and the only way a man really could win was by knockout. So that in order to win a fight, a man had to score a knockout. But there was betting on those fights. The betting was based on what was called newspaper decisions. If I bet you $100 and I say Dempsey would knock out his opponent or Dempsey would win, we'll bet on the opinion of Damon Runyon. The next day you'd pick up Runyon's paper, and if Runyon said, well, I think that Nagler won the fight, at least it looked that way from the southwest corner, you collected. Otherwise, you lost. That was quite different from the boxing as we know it today. Boxing was a very important part of the sports spectrum. Big league baseball, there was no pro football. College, there was no pro basketball. So the boxing was a very important part. Now in comes this rough and tumble man from the West, a fierce puncher, a man who has been through the jungles. He has lived under the worst possible circumstances in mining towns in Nevada and in Colorado. He comes in and he's a rough, tough guy, and he proceeds to knock out people. That's impressive. And so his reputation was built on the basis of his prowess as a heavy-hitting, rough, tough Manassas Mauler. Interesting to me, I think everybody thought of Jack Dempsey as being a pretty big guy, but when he fought Willard was the giant. Dempsey went in, I believe, at 185 pounds. No, it was, you were close enough, 182 pounds. And he was a very small man alongside of Willard, and at that time, there was some question about whether Dempsey would survive such a fight. Willard, I understand, and I've been told, was the favorite. Dempsey was the small man. Dempsey had to be the giant killer, but Dempsey was a fierce man, and that made the difference. It happened in July 1919. The scene was Toledo, Ohio. Heavyweight championship, Jack Dempsey and the champion, Jess Willard.
July 4th, 1919. Jack Dempsey is scheduled to meet Jess Willard for the heavyweight championship of the world. On the morning of the fight, Jack actually sparred and hit the punching bags before the weigh-in. Jess Willard approached Jack Kearns, Dempsey's manager, and asked about legal immunity in case he killed the challenger. Tex Rickard had masterminded one of the greatest spectacles in boxing history.
Tex had an immense wooden stadium built in Toledo, Ohio, to house the huge crowds he expected. The cost? $100,000 worth of green lumber. As it turned out in the hot sun, the sap from the unseasoned wood ruined many a spectator's double-breasted suit. Inside the stadium, 2,000 women, including actress Ethel Barrymore, are seated in a special section fenced off by barbed wire. This forever ended the custom of all male fight crowds. When Dempsey comes in the ring, the temperature is a torrid 112 degrees. Willard arrives, gracefully acknowledges the crowd's enthusiastic welcome. The symbolic heavyweight championship belt is displayed. The fighters meet in the center of the ring to pose for the cameras. Jess Willard does not seem to be in the rock-hard shape he was against Jack Johnson 4 years earlier. But what a difference in size between champion and challenger. Moments before the opening bell, Dempsey rubs rosin on his feet. First round. The bell rings, but no one hears it because of the clamor of the crowd. Jess Willard stands confused, looking around. There's a second bell. The most exciting first round in heavyweight history is underway. The fight starts calmly, but keep an eye on Dempsey. Although outweighed by almost 80 pounds, he has bet $10,000 at 10-to-1 odds that he will knock the champion out in the first round. Four dynamite punches and Willard is down for the first time in his 8-year career. The crowd surges to its feet. When the champion rises, Dempsey leaps after him, drives Jess toward the ropes. Willard goes down for the second of what will prove to be 7 knockdowns. Dempsey pounces to the attack again, rains punches on the floundering champion. There was no neutral corner rule in 1919, and Dempsey is allowed to stand over the fallen fighter, ready to swing as soon as both knees leave the canvas. A crashing blow to the ribs sends Jess down again. Willard desperately tries to fend off the raging challenger. Dempsey lands more brutal punches. The champion staggers across the ring. He's down again. The referee pushes Dempsey away. Willard pulls his battered body erect, only to be floored for the 7th time. Referee Ollie Picord is counting over the incredibly game champion. The bell rings, saving Willard from a first-round knockout, but no one hears it because of a fantastic uproar. Dempsey leaves the ring thinking he has won the championship and his 10-to-1 side bet, a $100,000 payoff. Meanwhile, Willard's handlers attend to him, desperately trying to ready Jess for the second round. With jaw broken and 2 ribs cracked, the battered champion is led to his corner. Dempsey's manager, Jack Doc Kearns, runs over and starts screaming after the young fighter, "Jack, come back! Jack, come back!" The mammoth Willard not only lasts through round 2, but he's still on his feet here in round 3. Dempsey is relentless on the attack. But in the blazing Toledo sun, Jess Willard is proving what is meant by the saying, he went out like a champion. After the 3rd round, Willard's handlers insist that he not answer the 4th round bell. Jack Dempsey forges an instant legend as the Manasseh Mauler. He has won the heavyweight championship in one of the most savage battles in ring history.
The crowd was upset, calling Willard a quitter. Jack Dempsey took home over $27,000 and the heavyweight crown. Later, Jack awoke in the middle of the night, dreaming that Willard had knocked him out. Then Jack ran out into the street, bought a newspaper, and read the big print. Jack Dempsey, heavyweight champion of the world. Two years later, on July 2nd, 1921, the Manasseh Mauler defended his crown against French war hero Georges Carpentier in boxing's first $1 million gate. Jack had received adverse publicity for deferring enlistment in World War I due to family need. Carpentier was a big hit in the U.S. from the moment his boat docked. The writers had what they wanted, the war hero battling the black sheep. But Jack Dempsey set out to destroy the perfect storybook ending.
And one of the most successful promotions in the history of boxing gets underway. Tex Rickard immediately sets about building another of his green lumber arenas in Jersey City, New Jersey. Inside, Carpentier enters the ring to receive an hysterical ovation from the keyed-up crowd. The heavyweight champion of the world arrives with his entourage. A ferocious-looking Jack Dempsey with 2 days' growth of beard. Meanwhile, incredulous tellers were totaling the gate receipts. The total was $1,800,000, the first $1 million gate in boxing history. The two men shake hands for the cameras. The fight starts 2 hours earlier than scheduled. The wooden stands were filled to overflowing by noon, and Tex Rickard became worried that they would collapse before he got the fight underway. The Dempsey-Carpentier fight was the social event of 1921. The list of people who attended reads like a society and entertainment world who's who. Rockefeller, Ford, Vanderbilt, Whitney, Gould, Harriman, Baruch, Astor. Flo Ziegfeld of Follies fame was there. So was John Ringling of the Circus, Colonel Jacob Rupert of the Yankees, George M. Cohan, Al Jolson. It was the in place to be on July 2nd, 1921. Dempsey, as usual, is pressing the fight, using his greater weight and power. Round 2, Carpentier gets home with his best weapon, his potent right hand. Dempsey is hurt. The crowd goes wild as George tries to press his advantage. American fight fans across the country were listening to the fight on the first live coast-to-coast radio hookup. 4th round, Dempsey has taken charge. George misses with a desperate flurry. Dempsey is after him. A sharp left right and Carpentier is down. The Frenchman looks like he's out cold, but jumps up at 9. 2 more punches and George is down again. This time he does not rise.
Jack pocketed $300,000 in this unpopular title defense. Because this was the first broadcast of a fight on radio, Jack Dempsey's image had been damaged by the resounding boos from the crowd of 93,000. When Jack returned to New York City, he was a heavyweight champion without the support of the American public.
These are the offices of Ring Magazine here in New York, the Bible of the sport of boxing. Nat Fleischer was the founder of Ring Magazine, and not incidentally, it was he who was behind the microphone of that first ever radio broadcast of a heavyweight championship fight. It was also Nat Fleischer who, in large part, was responsible for bringing to the attention of New York City and the national press a young Jack Dempsey. Ray Arcel has been around the sport of boxing for some 63 years, handling champions all the way from Benny Leonard to Roberto Duran, seen a lot come and a lot go. Ray, let me ask you about Jack Dempsey. He was a guy who was not always the most popular fighter. There were times when he was, but there were times when he wasn't.
Well, of course, when he fought Carpentier, they built Carpentier up as a great war hero. And they had to do something in order to be able to sell the match. Dempsey was such an outstanding figure and such a great fighter that they had to write some complimentary stories about Carpentier, and naturally they delved on the great war hero and the great war record.
Ray, I think it's fact that a fighter can only be as good as the people who handle him, and it was Jack Kearns who handled Jack Dempsey. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, Jack Kearns was a very smart manipulator. He was a good manager. He knew his way around. He had a way with newspapermen, and of course, he and Jack were a wonderful team. But then as time went on, they thought differently. Jack wanted to work often. He needed work. He was a great fighter. And of course, he believed in the old saying, to rest is to rust. And Jack thought, Kearns thought that he could get by with exhibition bouts instead of real fights, because they got a taste of a real money shot with Carpentier and they wanted to keep going. With the result that these exhibition fights meant nothing to Jack, because there was no incentive to go in there and do anything, whereas in a regular fight you get in there and train and get in shape. And he went into these exhibition fights and they meant nothing to him. And with the result that he had a lot of idle moments there for a long time.
It is interesting, I think, Ray, in this day and age, Sugar Ray Leonard fights a Larry Bonds, who actually is a ranked fighter, and the public says that's a mismatch. Jack Dempsey, in 1921, after he fought Carpentier, did not fight again until 1923, other than exhibitions. And when he did, he fought Tommy Gibbons, who was unranked. I would think if that happened in this day and age, the people would just demand more out of the champion.
Well, I don't think you know Tom Gibbons. Tom Gibbons was a great fighter. He was one of the best light heavyweights and heavyweights that we had. And of course, he was an excellent performer, great defensive boxer, and it was a good fight for Dempsey because he needed the work and he was getting ready to fight a very important fight.
He wanted the fight, and his manager did not want him to fight.
Well, Kearns felt that he should box exhibitions and go on a stage and earn money that way, and then when a big fight came along that he would be ready for it. But Jack thought differently because he wanted to be very active.
So it was a period of 2 years between the time Jack Dempsey fought Georges Carpentier and the time he fought a good but an unranked Tommy Gibbons.
On July 4th, 1923, Jack Dempsey traveled to the little-known town of Shelby, Montana to meet Tommy Gibbons. Dempsey was guaranteed $300,000. Gibbons fought for nothing.
Gibbons in the dark trunk starts out with his defensive fight plan. He has never been knocked out or even floored during his 12-year career. He backs away, ties up the champion. 15th round. Tommy Gibbons has planned his strategy too cautiously. Dempsey is far ahead on points because of his aggressiveness. The fight is over. Jack retains his title by a clear-cut decision.
After the fight, the town of Shelby went bankrupt. In order to fulfill Dempsey's guarantee, the town had to hand over almost all of the sparse gate receipts. The arena that had been built was unpaid for. Dempsey and Kearns were not very popular by the time they had left. 2 months later, Jack prepared for his return to the Polo Grounds to face Luis Firpo from Buenos Aires. He would be greeted with yet another $1 million gate. Luis Firpo was nicknamed the Wild Bull of the Pampas and had knocked out 42-year-old Jess Willard in 8 rounds. At first, Firpo didn't want to fight Jack Dempsey, but Tex Rickard had persuaded him to challenge for the title. What transpired was one of the most bizarre fights in heavyweight history.
On the night of the fight, September 14th, 1923, 80,000 fans crowded into the Polo Grounds in New York City. It was Tex Rickard's second $1 million gate. Famous ring announcer Joe Humphreys introduces the fighters. In just seconds, Firpo and champion Jack Dempsey will collide in the most spectacular fireworks display ever to take place inside a boxing ring. With 2 savage brawlers in there, everyone expects lightning to strike. And they are not to be disappointed. Dempsey gets in first, giving the Argentinian his own special version of an American welcome. Jack Dempsey tastes blood, and as usual, he wants to end it here and now. Firpo is down again, but still the champion does not dream that in the next 2 minutes, he will be locked in one of the most unbelievable seesaw contests in sporting annals. Dempsey seems to be having it all his way, as Firpo is down again. But Jack is about to taste the power and strength that allows the Argentinian to continue to absorb such a barrage. A blunderbuss right catches the unsuspecting champion coming in and floors him for a 1 count. An enraged Dempsey storms right back. Firpo drops. That is the 7th of what would prove to be a record 9 first-round knockdowns. There's number 8. Dempsey charges in for the kill, but the giant challenger fends him off with a desperate flurry of wide-arm punches. Dempsey retreats before the sudden onslaught. A right hand from the bleachers, and Dempsey is out of the ring. The first time in the history of pugilism that a heavyweight champion suffers such indignity. But Dempsey is boosted back into the ring by ringside reporters. And the struggle goes on. Dempsey's fabled jaw again stands him in good stead as he hangs on through the fog. There's the bell. Somehow both fighters have survived this most savage first round. Dempsey comes out fresh, and the fans brace themselves, wondering what possibly can be coming next. Dempsey is getting off. Firpo is down to the 10th knockdown of the fight. He's up. Firpo will try to fend off Dempsey with another overhand right, but the champion now seems definitely in charge. Two pulverizing left hooks, and Louis Angel Firpo is down for the 11th knockdown. 8, 9, 10, and out.
After the fight, Jack Dempsey collected $550,000 directly from promoter Tex Rickard. Jack Kearns was furious, but the champion by this time distrusted his manager. Jack Dempsey was tired of having his life programmed by Doc Kearns. Instead, he lived the life of a celebrity. His new wife, actress Estelle Taylor, convinced him to have his nose done. Naturally, the new Jack Dempsey made his way to Hollywood and Broadway.
44th and Broadway in New York City. That's just the kind of place that Jack Dempsey would come after a tough fight like the one with Louis Firpo. Ronnie Nagler, I would have to think that fight with Firpo had to be, from a spectator point of view, one of the great fights in history. What really happened when Dempsey went out of the ring?
Well, when Dempsey was knocked out of the ring, he landed on a judge, Kid McPartland. Legend has it that he landed on 48 typewriters of 48 newspapermen working, but actually it was Kid McPartland, a tall man who was a judge and who was judging that fight. In pushing Dempsey back up onto the apron, he turned and pushed him onto the typewriter of a newspaperman. Now that typewriter was sold 78 times as the typewriter upon which Dempsey fell.
Well, that was in 1923. Jack Dempsey did come back to Broadway. He was not one for liking of the bright lights, was he?
Dempsey was not a Broadway guy, but he liked Broadway. He married 4 times. Twice he married stage people. He played on the stage. He caroused on Broadway. It was his life. After